Now, some of you may have seen this article we are going to look at here reported yesterday, well, last night as far as I can tell, suggesting that the UK population has dropped by 1.3 million due to workers from other countries putting tail between their legs and pissing off home because Boris Johnson shut down the economy, meaning obviously there is no jobs for them to do. Of course, this could be true, but I am extremely sceptical, as I'm sure most of you are. But if it is true, it will be one thing this government has done well in the past year, though to be honest, they didn't intend it, so do they really deserve the praise for it? No, I would say they don't. And let's not forget, if this is true, and once again, that is a big if, within a month of opening the country again, Boris Johnson will do his best to import 2 million more workers to make up for it, despite the fact most of the country, including those on furlough, will be out of work at the time. Because for anyone still living in a fantasy land, the chances are if you're on furlough right now, you are already unemployed. The government are just paying you with your own money so you don't stand against this lunacy. That is essentially what they are doing. Now, back to the story at hand, this may well be good news if true, but it could end up being a double-edged sword. As some of you might know, when population falls, governments tend to overreact and allow demented levels of unrestricted immigration that only damages the country. It certainly does not help it. This is something we have seen over the past 20, 30 or even 40 years. It obviously goes without saying that they should encourage the people here to fuck like rabbits and rebuild the population that way, but governments don't use logic or common sense, least of all the one we have now. The easy way to do it would be to give incentives for couples having kids. Of course, you won't see that happen. Instead, we will get an influx of people from half the fucking world, despite you all voting for controls on immigration. But I expect that wouldn't surprise any of you if it happened. Now, the Telegraph have picked up on this, so let's see what they actually have to say. It headlines UK population in biggest fall since Second World War. Yeah, if it's true. Unprecedented exodus of workers not reflected in official figures, economists warn. Which sounds more like someone's pushing Boris to open up the borders to every Tom, Dick and Harry going. The UK population may have fallen by as much as 1.3 million, the biggest decline since the Second World War, in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic, academics have said. Because yeah, academics are really a trustworthy source. As I expect most of you will do, take this entire article with all the salt in the fucking Dead Sea. That is certainly what I am doing. A study by the Economic Statistics Centre of Excellence highlighted an unprecedented exodus of foreign-born workers following the outbreak of the virus, as well as shortcomings in official surveys inflating the number of UK workers. No, years of unrestricted immigration have inflated the number of UK workers, but that's not really the point here. Labour data, it says, more reliable than migration statistics, suggests a drop of more than 500,000 in the number of foreign-born residents in the year to last September, authors Michael O'Connor and Jonathan Ports said. But they added that the Office for National Statistics had not adjusted population projections to take account of COVID-19 immigration, which exaggerated the numbers of UK workers in figures. Their own estimates adjusting for immigration, which they called a much more plausible picture of recent development, showed that instead of a rise of 350,000 in 2020, the population falls by more than 1.3 million. Which obviously, if true, would kind of be good news. 1.3 million, especially workers going, is only going to help the people that are here. And actually, if the government hasn't even noticed and actual figures haven't picked it up, then I would suggest that we certainly don't need them in this country. The governments were bringing them in order to drive down wages. It's pretty fucking simple. It goes on, while the total population was almost flat in the late 1970s, if this is even close to being accurate, this is the largest fall in the UK resident population since World War II, the authors wrote. So even them there don't actually know whether it's true, but they say if it's even close to being accurate, it is the largest fall since World War II. That's fucking good news, but like I said, all the salt in the Dead Sea. You can't trust the media, you can't trust politicians, and you certainly can't trust academics in this day and age. Shit, in 2020, 2021, whatever year it is, trust is a fucking luxury. It has been that way since the dawn of time, but more so in recent times, I would suggest. Goes on, the impact is felt largest in London, where the economists estimate the capital's population may have fallen by almost 700,000. That's fucking good news. Though, once again, I don't fucking believe it. echoing the 1970s exodus, which saw central London's population fall 20%. Big shifts in population trends in London, driven by economic changes and events, are by no means historically unprecedented, so the picture of sustained growth driven by international migration is relatively recent. Yeah, and I don't know about your sustained growth driven by international migration, I'm not sure where you're getting that from. London appears to be a shit show, and yes, growth has occurred in the economy, but it's not because of international migration. In fact, migration is a net downfall to us, especially at the levels that it has been at. There should be some immigration, but it should be heavily controlled and only related to people that the country actually needs. Of course, big business doesn't want that because they would rather pay people less and less. It's much better for a business to have 100 people applying for the same job over having like 3 or 4 applying for it. If there's only 3 or 4 going for the job because they're skilled enough, then you have to pay them a fuck ton more. If there's 100 people going for that same skilled job, then you can lower the wages. It's common fucking sense. Or should I say, common sense if you're a business. It's a bit of a cunt if you're one of the workers. It goes on, if this has now reversed, the medium to long-term implications for London will be profound, the report said. In other words, pushing for Boris Johnson to open up the borders once again. That is the reason for this, if you ask me. The adjusted population estimates also helped explain why official unemployment figures remain so low at 4.9% despite the economic shock of COVID. Much of the burden of job losses during the pandemic has fallen on non-UK workers and has manifested itself in return migration rather than unemployment, they added. Yeah, but that non-UK workers and unemployment will come to them soon. As I said, at the moment they're just being paid to shut up with their own money. But hey, they will all find that out soon enough, I am sure. Says here, falling and aging populations pose a long-term threat to the economy's ability to grow. COVID-19 inspired immigration is not the only threat to the UK's population, according to recent research, as the nation also faces a baby bust this year. Well, yeah, when the government's fucking with everyone's lives and taking away their liberty, I can imagine people are not that quick to try and bring a child into this world. With the way things are going now, some could consider it almost cruel, locking up a baby in its house for the rest of its life if they get their own way. This is no way for babies and children to live, that is for sure. Never mind us adults, what about the kids whose lives and futures are being fucking destroyed? That, I expect, is the reason why people are not so quick to have a family, though of course they should continue doing it because the population needs to grow, and not by fucking immigration, let me tell you that. It says the impact of the lockdown and the economic fallout of the virus on couples delaying starting a family is likely to push the birth rate to its lowest on record, according to estimates from Accounts PwC. Its economists suggest that just 569,000 babies are likely to be born this year, down from as many as 724,000 in 2011, with lowest figures since 1900. So like I said, people might need to start fucking like rabbits at this point, because if you ask me, they are pushing this whole narrative here so they can try and increase immigration. You mark my fucking words, that's probably what's going to happen. So while if true it would be good news, I still find it's going to end up putting us in the shit. We will likely end up with 2 or 3 million more coming in. We all know the Conservatives absolutely love a bit of immigration.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires, and that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going, and we are glad to be going. We're off.